Thank you for joining me today in today's 820 episode, your 500 seconds of resilience. Today's topic is called Bouncing Forward. Bouncing Forward. I think that's a good title to, in a short, small two words, to relate to you the overarching meaning about the 820 podcast. About resilience. Bouncing forward with resilience. And maybe you can consider that as a description of overcoming something bad. And, as they said back in the day, quote unquote, bouncing back from that something bad. But back? Why back? Why not forward? Something stopped you and prohibited your progress so much that you have to recover from back there. Every moment, every day should mean and exhibit movement forward, even in tiny, small steps and small ways. I submit to you this proposition. There is no going back, ever, or into some mystical future. Yes, bouncing forward, but not into that mystical fantasy called tomorrow or future. You can only choose to bounce forward from here and now in this moment. How about this example and analogy? Bear with me. Say you are an indestructible ball of helium energy. Maybe remember back in the day, that big ass rubber kickball we used to have on the playground? Remember that? And you'll say you are that big ass rubber ball of helium, all right? And you get placed on the field, called the field of life. That field of life is, the field is concrete or grass or, sand, buildings, cold in the summer and hot in the winter. But that's the field that this ball, you exists right now. Then you get punted into play. Here you go, bouncing into play. You're picked up, passed around, kicked. You're disregarded, protected. You're discarded. You are stored. You end up in traffic. And then maybe you get struck by a semi-trailer truck. Don't worry. Remember I said earlier, you are an indestructible ball of energy. Okay? However, you, that ball, have been pushed and moved by these external forces in this field of life. Like that truck. And you get catapulted into another realm, new condition. However, that sounds kind of bad and dangerous, but you are still bouncing forward. And you roll with it. Seriously, pun intended there. But you're rolling forward with that fate that you can never control. I know I've mentioned in many earlier podcasts about that thing that my African elder, Mr. Tamba, told me with a very eloquent, off-the-cuff conversation when I asked him about what's my purpose in life. One of those days, when you're feeling down and low, and again, even though, I still have a car, I still have breath, I still have life, little money in the bank, yet I'm feeling this woe is me. And this man was telling me, your fate is fixed. And talk about a slap in the face, a bright, megawatt light shine in my face right there in that moment. Like, what are you telling me? I'm here looking for empathy, sympathy, something. And they tell me my fate is fixed. Of course, I mentioned to you in the other podcast earlier, I always default to the bad side of life. My fate is fixed, and forgetting all the good things up to that day that Tamba told me that, I had so many great things happen to me. And first of all, being born. And something else he told me before about the question he asked me. He wasn't telling me. He asked me a question about put that your fate is fixed to the side for a minute. He was asking me a question about, have you ever seen a miracle? And I'm thinking, I'm racking my head about what the hell, have I seen a miracle? Yeah, the birth of my child. He said, no. Recovering from surgery? No. Everything I said that I thought was an answer, he would tell me no. And he said, have you looked in the mirror? I was like, well, yeah, when I brushed my teeth and washed my face. No. Have you looked in the mirror and seen that miracle that you are? Like, damn. I would never even thought of that. I would never even have felt that. And of course, keep in mind, I was way before I even learned about this loving everyone or loving myself. I hadn't gotten that point yet. This is years ago. I had never gotten that yet. For him to say that about see that miracle, but I had forgotten all the good things about how I even exist here. That is the thing he was trying to get me to see, not the bad side of your fate being this dangerous, ugly, dark thing. You have all the stuff that's happened to you, and much that has happened to you. No, we'll never know that fateful date or that fixed date that is our ultimate last breath on this earth. But before then, and right now, we have this power. We have this force. We have this energy, drive, desire to produce, to be present, to do something positive in this life right now. We have that. But sometimes, well, let me speak to myself and share with you, I forget that part. Almost always, not always, let's say more than not. Something happens, I always default to address the bad part, not the good part. The good part meaning I'm alive and aware enough to be able to observe and communicate on what I'm observing instead of saying, oh, all's going to hell. I gotta stop doing that. And remember for myself that I still have to bounce forward, never recover or bounce back, and roll with it, and roll with the fate that I cannot control, and always remain with the presence of being non-resistant, non-attached, and non-judgmental of what is happening, and always have the heart set to bounce forward always. Thank you once again. I love you all. Stay present. Stay current. It is always 8:20.